One. Hey, everybody, it's Mark Pattison. I'm back again with another great episode of Finding Your Summit, all about people overcoming adversity and finding their way. And certainly today, I've got an amazing guest who amplifies all that. We'll get to him in just a minute. But before that, as always, I encourage people to go to my website, www.markpattisonnfl.com. And not only do I have another slew of amazing podcasts, well over 200 people doing incredible things, but also if you give me a ratings and review, it helps with the popularity of the show. You can do that on iTunes, and any love is appreciated all the way. Also continue to raise money for Amelia's Everest. It actually goes through Higher Ground, amazing organization here in Sun Valley, Los Angeles, and New York. And speaking of that, we have the NFL film coming out showing the documentary of my whole Everest journey. We're going to be doing a premiere here in Sun Valley, and it will be a Higher Ground fundraiser. So excited to see more money and awareness go to that amazing organization. Okay, so on that note, let's get into it. Today's guest is, I don't even know, Sean, how you and I got connected, but we did. His name is Sean Swarner. Sean, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Welcome home.
Thank you. And for a guy that would actually understand and realize what I just went through, we all have our own journey in life, and certainly yours has been absolutely amazing. And I want to go back and, I was reading your story and I was just, my mouth was wide open, and yet it's just another example of people with an amazing human spirit overcoming incredible odds and getting there. You've overcome cancer not once but twice, diagnosed at 13 and again at 16, had 14 days to live. I mean, I could go on and on and on. And it a lot of times when I'm talking to people like you, Sean, and I hear them doing these amazing feats, and it's grit, it's determination, it's perseverance, of all those words of getting things done. And I always think about like where did that motivation come? Where did it all set for you? And so let's go back to when you were a young kid. You were 13, you were 16, and all this stuff was going down. Was it before that you learned to really, look things right in the face and say, I'm going to overcome this, I'm going to get after it? Was there something from your parents, or is it from those particular experiences of being, literally on your deathbed and being able to overcome that?
Right. In all honesty, I think it's a combination of the two. When I was younger, I mean, I was a competitive swimmer for years, and I think I still have records from when, like in 1987, 88. I was undefeated in the summer swim league. But one of the things that I always remember being a kid, I think I started at maybe 5 or 6. In my event was the 25-meter breaststroke. So I'd swim one lap down, right? And either mom or dad would always be there to pull me out of the water. And they would ask me 2 questions. 1, did you have fun? And 2, did you do your best? They weren't asking me, why didn't you beat Jimmy, or why didn't you beat, Sam, or whatever. They instilled in me at such a young age that I didn't have to be the best. I had to be my best. And eventually I set the bar for everybody, because I wasn't worried about beating the swimmer next to me. I was worried about beating my time from last weekend. So I just kept getting faster and faster and faster, because I was focused on what I could do. I couldn't control what everybody else was doing. And I think that really translated into when I was diagnosed with the first cancer. I remember going to bed numerous nights, like day in, day out, being terrified to close my eyes, because I didn't know if they would ever open again. Mm. I was given 3 months to live the first time, 14 days to live the second time around. So I remember being comfortable in the uncomfortable, but also looking for the opportunities. So I didn't go to bed thinking of all the things that I didn't do, all the things I couldn't get accomplished, all the things that I didn't get done. I went to bed with an attitude of gratitude, looking back, because like I said, closing my eyes night after night, being terrified. I went to bed being grateful for everything I was able to accomplish. I went to bed being thankful for having my friends, whatever it might be that day. So I think that really helped me focus on not the negative aspects of life, but the positive aspects of life. And it's gone ever since I was diagnosed with the first cancer, the second cancer, and even now, years later.
It's really incredible. You know, John Wooden always talks about be at your best when your best is required. You know, it's interesting what you said about your parents is really asking you that question. Did you do your best on that particular day? And then making that really serve as a challenge for yourself to get better, what you did. I can't imagine at 13 and 16, or really let's go to maybe 16, when you've already gone through this battle when you're 13, and you know you've been essentially been given your last rites, and now you're sitting here, you've got the diagnosis, and they hand you, you know, this it's, I wouldn't call it a gift, but maybe it was a gift, you know, at the end of the day, to make who you are today. You know, it'd be interesting on that perspective. But like, oh my God, I've got to go through this whole thing again. I mean, what was that like?
Absolutely. That's what went through my mind. You know, why me? Why me? I sure as hell didn't want to go through it again.
Hmm.
And you kind of mentioned my last rites. I was read my last rites. I mean, a man in the hospital, a man in the clock came in, and I remember being 16. They gave me, like I said, 14 days to live the second time around. I was laying in the hospital bed, and they wanted me to write out a living will. And a man of the cloth came in, and they wanted to put me in hospice. So he came in and started reading me my last rites, and I heard about the living will. And I have a younger brother, 3 years younger than I am. And I remember looking up at my mom and my dad and just asking them, like, what is a hospital one? Isn't Seth going to get my hand-me-downs anyhow? Like, like, what are they going to take from me?
Hmm.
So we actually kicked the father out of the room. And the second time out, it was just devastating because I knew I was going to lose my friends. I knew everything was going to be on pause. I was in a medically induced coma for a year. So I barely even remember being 16 years old.
And what was that? Tell me what that was.
Well, because no one's ever had Hodgkin's and Askin sarcoma before. I'm the only person who's ever had the two. And I did some number crunching, and the chances of me surviving both of those illnesses is roughly the equivalent of, let's just say, you winning the lottery 4 times in a row with the same numbers. So they didn't know what to expect. They really had no idea. And the treatments were so harsh. And I was so young, the doctors didn't want me to remember. So every time I was in the hospital, let's say my cycle was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then I'd be released to build up my red blood cells and hemoglobin, exactly like going up Everest. You know, you go back down to base camp so you can essentially manufacture more red blood cells. Same thing with going through chemo. Then I'd go back in Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. That would be one cycle. And it was 3 months of intense chemo, a month of radiation, and then 10 more months of chemotherapy. And when I was in the hospital for the treatments, I don't remember them. That's when they knocked me out. And because of the radiation, there's that 1 month I mentioned, I only have one fully functioning lung.
Why did you survive that? You just described a literally an impossible scenario and combination of numbers to win the lottery 4 times in a row. Why did you survive?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I ask myself that every morning I wake up to give myself a purpose and motivation. Because I think if you can find your purpose, you'll find your passion, and that'll give your life meaning. So I wake up every morning and I tell myself there's nothing I can do about the past. It's gone forever. Tomorrow may never come. No matter what happens today, today's the best day ever. And I wake up and I tell myself that I'm going to make a difference in at least one person's life to help me find that purpose and help me find that passion. So looking back at it, why did I survive? That's a great question. I'll know maybe when my time's up.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I looked death right in the face when I was coming down Everest, you know, going up and coming down and being snowblind and running out of oxygen and not eating for 3 days. And, you know, I like had every single thing I could possibly have go wrong. And I'm sure that if there was a superstorm like what happened in the thin air in 1996, there very well could have been a likely outcome. And so, you know, as I asked myself, I was coming down, I was looking back up the slope of Lhotse up that face, and what I was supposed to do is go climb that, and it's just like, if I do that, for sure I die. All I have to do is get back down to the bottom and to get back to my kids and the people that love me, and I love them, and that's truly, and it was, I really felt like there was some kind of divine intervention, you know, on the way, you know, down, and so it was just it was just interesting. I think when people face these types of life and death, I mean, it's real. You're right at the front door. They go through some kind of transformation. And I'm not trying to pull something out of you. I'm just, like where there's a defining moment, like as you went forward and you're like realizing like the likelihood of people surviving two different types of cancers, losing the lung. And then we'll get into all this amazing stuff that you went on to do and they're still doing, which is cool. But was there a bright light that came and hit you, or was just like, hey, I'm going to turn the page and I'm going to have a different way of looking? You talked about an attitude of gratitude. Was there like a defining moment that you're going to shift from point A to point B, or it's just like you survived it, you're thankful for it, and now you're going to make a difference?
Yeah, great question. I see where you're going with that. And looking back at why you came down and didn't go up Lhotse, I heard you say one word in there that probably tapped into your personal core values, and that was family. I think that's one of my personal core values as well. I survived because I looked at it from the angle of I couldn't leave my mom and my dad. I can only imagine what would happen if I passed away, if I didn't survive. Just the pain that it would bring them. So I think that was one of the reasons. But another one was just living when your future literally is tomorrow because of what you're battling, what you're going through. You don't think a year in the future. You don't think 2 years in the future. You don't think of your purpose. You don't think of that stuff. And because when I went through the cancers, 13 to say 18 years old, the developmental years of my life, when you're supposed to be developing this concept of the future, I literally lived day by day. I didn't have the opportunity to think of any future. Mm-hmm. So I think that it was just, as you said, it was kind of turn the page. Let's hit the restart button. You wake up in the next morning, you open your eyes, you're like, wow, I'm grateful. I'm grateful to be alive. Let's make the most of it. And it happened again the next day, happened again the next day. It still happens now. So I wouldn't say that there was one thing that happened. I would say it was a cumulative effect of utilizing the compound effect one day after another, getting stronger and stronger and stronger. Because I don't think anything really happened overnight, except for the treatment, or except for the diagnosis. Because with that diagnosis, that instantly changed me, changed my perspective. And I remember waking up, I can't tell you how many times, and looking at my pillowcase, it just being covered in hair. 60, 70 pounds overweight, not recognizing the person who was in the mirror. Yeah. But I think it was one day after another, just building upon the day previous to that.
One of the things that I have found, I got into mountain climbing. People who listen to this podcast will know this, but I got into mountain climbing 19 years ago because I was going through a bad patch, right? And so we'll say you went through a bad patch. I mean, it was a seriously bad patch, but and what I went through compared to what you went through, it was not a life and death situation, but it's all relative to your own scenario. What's going on in your life, and you think whatever's going on with you at that particular time is the worst thing that could ever possibly happen. And, I look at it now as an absolute gift of getting into climbing, podcasting, talking to people like you. I mean, it was the best thing ever, but when you're in it, sometimes it doesn't seem like there is a way out. And I guess the message is that, whatever you're going through can just be the beginning of some amazing things down the road, but you do have to go through it. You can't go around it. And just like what you're doing now, you're serving in such a great way in terms of nonprofits and helping others and inspiring. With your Kilimanjaro climbs, you've been up at, would you say 21 times?
That was my 21st trip.
Yeah, 21 times. And it's all in the spirit of trying to help others overcome their cancer prognosis and things like that. So what I want to do now is I want to shift to like what some of those gifts have become, right? And then tie it into the very end on how that inspiration has helped others, right? And I'll give you kind of like the headline, and I want to understand like kind of the time frame when all this started to go down. But you've actually done something called the Explorers Grand Slam,
right?
And so,
which sounds like a Denny's breakfast platter.
So let's educate. I know what it is, but let's educate everybody what the Explorers Grand Slam is, and then I want you to put some time frame around when all this went down.
the Explorers Grand Slam or the Adventures Grand Slam is the 7 summits, which is the highest mountain on every continent, including Everest, obviously, and making it to the North and South Poles. And you have to make it there on your own accord. You can't just fly to the North Pole. I mean, you can get a helicopter and do it, but that doesn't count. Some people have. Some people have done that, and they say, "Oh, I've done the Grand Slam." No, you haven't. You have to make it on under your own accord. And I've also, fortunately, also accomplished the Hawaii World Championship Hawaii Ironman, and that was comparatively, if you're looking at doing something like that, comparatively, I thought that was pretty easy.
I'm not looking to do anything like that. And you said you're a champion swimmer, and you have to be a great swimmer. You have to be a great runner, and you have to be a decent biker, to make it through the lava fields and everything on the big island of Hawaii. So I do want to go back there. There is a difference because I have been to Antarctica, and that's of course where is the home of the South Pole. And essentially, once you get to Union Glacier, I don't know if you start there, but close by, you're essentially cross-country skiing the 5-6 days until you reach the South Pole. Does that sound about right?
That sounds about right. Pulling a sled. The South Pole was a walk in the park compared to making it to the North Pole. I mean, the North Pole, if you look at Antarctica, it's a continent. The glacier's on a landmass. The North Pole, the polar glacier, if you can imagine the world like a giant glass of water with some ice cubes floating on top, that's what the polar ice cap is like. And there are currents flowing underneath the ice. So a lot of times the ice breaks up. So in the middle of the night, after you set up camp, you can hear things like snapping and cracking and breaking open. And because of depending on which direction the current is flowing, for example, we skied, I would say 7 miles north one day, set up camp, the current shifted, and we ended up, while we were sleeping, floating. We floated 2 miles backwards. So we only accomplished 5 miles that day, but we were being tracked by 2 polar bears, and it was so much colder than Antarctica. I mean, it's like day and night.
Yeah, so let's talk about the polar bears really quickly. So you said you're being tracked by them. So how do you keep polar bears? I mean, let's be clear first. So down in Antarctica, which I've been to, there are no predators that are chasing you. The North Pole is a whole different animal. And so there's a couple of questions here that I want to ask you about. Number one is the polar bear. So how do you prevent polar bears from coming in? Because they are literally predators. They are out to eat you and kill you. That's what they do. They look nice and cuddly, but they're not. So how did you prevent that from happening?
Well, we didn't. I don't know if there's anything you can do to prevent that from happening, but we had, at that point, when we found out that there were a few polar bears tracking us, we called the Russians on our satellite phone to check in. They have helicopters going around, and apparently Russians love 2 things: it's vodka and the cold. I don't get it, but so they're in charge of everything up north. And when we called them, they told us that they saw 2 polar bears kind of on the sniff, going up. And our doctor was evacuated because she had frostbite on her thumb. So we had 6 people, 2 people in each tent. She left. We gave them a tent. She flew home. So then we put 3 people in one tent, 2 people in another tent. And in one tent, they had a flashbang, a flare gun, right? Yeah. So you pull it, shoom, boom, and it explodes. And in the other one, in my tent with the guide in my tent, we had a rifle between the 2 of us. So thankfully we didn't have to use it. But I remember we were sitting there getting ready to go to bed, and we were practicing, picking up the rifle, picking it up and turning off the safety and just pointing it, getting it over and over and over, just practicing this. And then he practices, and I start cracking up. He's like, "The hell are you laughing at? There's a polar bear out there. It could come crashing in." Like, I know, but we're sitting here practicing like it's going to come to the front door. It's going to unzip and be like, "Hey guys, got some room for me in there?"
That's the way I was just thinking about it, because certainly they could come in from the back, and you got
anywhere.
Yeah. Okay, so that's question one. Question number 2 is, you described this scenario up there where you've got like essentially water with ice cubes floating, and when you're actually on the ice, it was breaking up, and so you floated backwards and frontwards and sideways. So how do you cross when there's a break, right? and you've got to get from point A to point B, but that point B requires that you have to go across the water, and there's not a way for you to cross that because it's broken away. So how do you manage that?
Well, those giant gaping holes in the ice on the mountains are called crevasses. Up there, they're called open leads. Okay, so we did have to cross a number of them where I remember the ice was still like the slushy consistency. Like you go to 7-Eleven, get the slushy. That's kind of what it was like. And I remember walking over and with my skis and seeing a little chunk of ice because of my weight, like a teeter totter. It raised up as I walked by and then floated back down. And we knew it was fresh. I mean, you could poke through, but because your weight is dispersed across two skis, you can go across something that's a lot thinner. But if you come across literal open water, which we did numerous times, you look down to it or down through it. It's so cold and so deep and so dark up there. It just looks like it looks like oil. So if that happens and it's too wide to go across safely, you have to go in opposite directions. You flip a coin. You look that way and say, okay, well, that looks a little bit, less of a distance to go up and around. Same thing over here, just like going over the crevasses on Everest, except we don't have ladders up in the North Pole.
No, I get all that. Wow. So let's go back to now, you're doing the North and South Pole and you're climbing all these crazy mountains, which I just completed recently, and you're doing all this with one lung. How did that affect you in terms of, sure, there's some mountains that I could probably name that it probably didn't affect you that much. And there's other mountains like Mount Everest, which I just came off of, that it had an impact. So tell me how that was for you.
I think because of when I did lose my lung, well, I still have my lung, when I lost the function of the lung, at 16, for the past however many years that is, we'll say it was 11 years from when I lost the lung to when I climbed Everest. I was very cognizant of my breathing. I was very aware of how I was breathing because I had to train myself how to breathe all over again. Most people breathe through their upper chest, because they get nervous. People don't usually utilize their full lung capacity. Now, whenever I breathe, it's automatic. I utilize the entire capacity of my left lung. And also, if I can't show you, but if we ever get together in person, I'll show you. My left rib cage sticks out, I'd say about this much further than my right rib cage. So it's adapted. And it's just crazy that if someone kind of knew that I was going to lose my lung, I have a genetic defect in my heart. I actually have two superior vena cavas, which are the veins that pump oxygenless blood back to the lungs to rejuvenate the body with oxygen. So I think I can do it twice as fast as most people. However, I just have that one lung. But I also think it's amazing how mental being physical is. And pushing myself here and going through what I've been through. The two cancers, they did a bone marrow test when I was 13, 14 years old with treating me as an adult. They didn't knock me out. The Novocaine didn't take effect until later. And I remember having that surgical steel blade go into my back, and I know what true pain is. So I think I can tolerate things a lot better than most people because of what I've been through. So as you were saying earlier about what you've been through, you see it as a blessing. Same thing here. Cancer was the worst thing that's ever happened to me, but it's the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Yeah, I've said this a number of times, which I really feel as though that you have to train a strong body to have a strong mind. I don't think it works the other way around. Just my opinion. And it certainly kicked in, all the training I did here in Sun Valley, all the chits I put in the bank. I had to use every single one of those, to get through. And a lot of it was just the mental toughness of like, today's not the day that I go down. We're going to keep going. We're going to get up and we're going to get back down this thing. But, it was far from a cakewalk, and it was just like the amount of hours that you spend. And it seems like, and I'm kind of projecting this on you a little bit, but it seems like it takes forever when you're actually in it,
right,
to emerge out of it. And then when you look back at it, then it seems like it was just a moment in time, right? Like my Everest thing, we're talking today on the 12th of July, this will run in a couple of weeks. and I came off May 23rd, and it seems like that happened 14 years ago, right? All that whole experience and being at Camp 4 and seeing dead bodies and all this, it just seems like it happened a lifetime ago. But in that moment, and I think that's a good point for everybody, that, you know, bad things do pass and good things do stay, but you got to ride it out and you got to get to the other side.
Yeah, and it's amazing too. The further away you get from the actual bad event, the more you remember the good parts of it. You slowly forget the blisters that you have in your feet. You slowly forget the fact that you couldn't see out of this eye. You slowly forget all those bad, painful memories, and you start remembering the good ones. And then you think to yourself, hey, I want to go back and do that again. And then everybody else around you looks at you and says, what's wrong with you?
Well, that's also the reason why women keep having babies, right?
Right.
They forget about it. So, okay, so I want to transition to what we started the show before we went live, and you've got this amazing picture of Kilimanjaro. I actually could see it. Yep, right behind you. And let's talk about the reason why you've now climbed that thing 21 times. You've got 19 more than me. And it sounds like you're headed back down there fairly soon, and you've got another one coming up. But it's just such an inspiring thing. I've been another one of the gifts that I've found through this challenge to overcome, and then here I am today, is being involved in these different charities. And you know, my eyes really got opened up. I think it was 2017 when Chris Long, Howard Long's son, who started this foundation called Water Boys, providing water wells to the people of the Maasai tribe. And I think it's spread out now to more the whole East Africa. But, you know, being able to raise money, build water wells, go down to these villages, see these people in action, and then go and climb the mountain with a bunch of other NFL players and military people were just an incredible experience. So tell me about the charity that you're involved in and what you're trying to accomplish.
I appreciate it, and I think what you just mentioned is amazing. You know, more people really need to give back. When you get to the top of the mountain, reach down and pull some other people up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, help them out, and and also I'm sure like you too. We've never been to the top of any significant peak without a team. You just can't do it on your own. So what I do now is I try to give back to the cancer family as much as possible. And with the Cancer Climber Association, we every year pay for a survivor's trip to go up Kilimanjaro. We do a 7-day hike, and then we do a 4-day safari in the Serengeti. And then it's the responsibility of that survivor to raise funds for next year's survivor, kind of paying it forward. Anyone can go on the trip, so don't get me wrong. We just fund a survivor every year. We have enough to take. We're taking 2 survivors this year for free, and then I'm hoping with those 2, then maybe we can raise enough to take 3 or 4 in 2022, and then keep going to maybe 15 survivors a year for free. Mm-hmm. And it's a life-changing experiential journey. And I think you get to I was going to say an age, but it's different for everybody. I think you get to a stage in your life where it's a lot like Christmas, for example. You know, I don't need anything, but I love giving gifts to people. And I love seeing my wife's face, you know, light up, or my brother's face, or my nephews or nieces, or my mom's or my dad's face light up when I give them a gift. It's the same thing going up Kilimanjaro now. You know, the transformation people go through on this journey when they get to the top, and this is going to sound really bad. I love seeing them cry. And I love seeing that raw emotion. And they come up to me and they always say, "Yeah, thank you for getting me here." And I look at them, and in a split second, their life changes when I say, "I didn't do anything to get you here." You know, and that's when I think you change someone's life. Inspiration and motivation can last for, you know, maybe a couple days. But when you can empower someone, and when you can make someone believe in themselves again, that's where the true life-changing alterations happen. And I think that's one of the reasons why I do it, because people who are going on these trips, oftentimes they don't believe in themselves. The cancer survivors have been beaten down, kicked in the teeth, you name it, dragged through the mud. And then they get to go up to the roof of Africa. You know, it literally is life-changing. And I love seeing that change in them.
And what is the name of this philanthropy? I'm not sure if you name this, is this after you, or what is this? What do you?
It's ironically called the Cancer Climber Association.
Okay, great. And tell me about, uh, I don't want to minimize what you're doing, because climbing Kilimanjaro is actually, for those who don't know, the highest mountain from the bottom to the roof in terms of distance. I don't want to minimize that, because it's a 6 day, fairly grueling climb, especially, when you're going to the summit and back down. But, what is on your planogram in terms of, as you go forward and you continue to challenge yourself? You've done the Explorers Grand Slam, you've run on the Ironman in Hawaii. You're doing, every year you're going and climbing Kili. Do you have something else beyond in the future that really, is getting your mind and your body, excited about doing this thing?
Well, if you're asking about the next challenge, I recently got married. I heard that's pretty difficult sometimes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So yeah, that's awesome. That's really awesome. But so you don't have anything right now, but and just so having just come off of Mount Everest, and, everything that goes into that, being there 2 months and being challenged like that right now, I'm just letting my mind and my body just reset until I come up with whatever that next thing is.
No, I'm always pushing the envelope, because I think everything I've been through, I think honestly, I'm more afraid of not living than I am of dying. And I want to constantly push it and push my body. So I think up next might be the world marathon, running 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days. And I also want to turn Kilimanjaro, which we're turning it into an experiential coaching expedition, adventure, where we want to help people through, basically, this is who you are now. This is who you want to be. I want to help people with that transition, because everything that I've done, looking back at all the accomplishments I have, what's motivated and pushed me forward has always been my personal core values. And I want people to I want them to tap into their own personal core values, because there are almost 8 billion people on the planet, right? So if we can all tap into our own potential, imagine what we could do for the world. Imagine how you can impact each individual's life by helping them just take one step, and then another step, and then one step further, but based on what you value most.
Incredible. I got to tell you, this is the exact reason why I do these podcasts, is because I get to meet super cool people like you, and, you're out trying to make a difference in the world. And I think that we all need inspiration. I mean, is motivated and the things that I've accomplished, I still need to be inspired to get up every day and go do certain things. And I'm sure you're the same way. And so the reality is that there's a lot of people out there that are stuck. And if there's any way that you or I or anybody else can help get them unstuck and get them to realize their potential, the best that they can be, going back to the quote that your dad used to always give you every morning when you're getting out of the pool: did you do your best? And making sure that they have realized that you do your best on that day, and are you realizing, what you can do and what you're capable of, and that's what it's all about. So thank you so much for sharing that. Sean, where can people find you? I know you mentioned a website, and that had to do with the climbing, Kili, and contributing towards that, but where's the best place for people to connect with you?
That's the easiest question you've asked so far. SeanSwarner.com, just like Sean Connery, SEAN, and like the Warner Brothers, but slap an S on the front. SeanSwarner.com.
That's easy. That's easy. All right, buddy. Well, listen, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story, and just incredible, and so glad that, that the stars all aligned for you to be around today and share all the great things that you're doing.
Absolutely, man. I definitely appreciate it, because sometimes people just need to believe that more is possible. They just need to see that hope. So I appreciate the opportunity to share.
Absolutely. All right, guys, there he is, the one, the only Sean Swarner. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.